This is Harry Murray in Murray's Fly Shop in Edinburgh, Virginia. Let's talk about the fishing that I expect we'll be finding in February. Admittedly, this is still cold water time for our trout fishing. However, the nymphs, especially the Eplis pluralis, the old one we used to call the Quill Gordon, they are starting to grow. Now, there's going to be a world of difference between the first week in February and the last week in February. So let's just play it all the way through. As these Quill Gordon nymphs start growing, they do move to the lower part of these riffles. When I want to get some pictures, I'd move down to the very downstream end of the riffle, turn rocks over, and they are everywhere in there. And they will reach a size, maybe 14 by the latter part of this month. The way I like to fish that is move into the lower end of the pool. I don't pay that much attention to the deep holes in the middle. These nymphs are up in those riffles, although they are in the lower part. So I move into the bottom of the riffle, maybe 10, 12 feet below the riffle itself, and cast right straight upstream so my nymph falls right into that riffle. Mr. Rapidan beadhead nymph in a 12 and a 14 is really an excellent match for that nymph. So I'll stand back in the lower part of the pool, fan my cast right up against that, and fish them back downstream dead drift, just rolling them right along through there. Now I use a 9-foot 5X Murray's Trout nymph leader with the built-in Murray's indicator on there. Now that does help because I'm fishing these upstream dead drift and then I'm retrieving them back at the same rate that they're drifting back, just as if they were the real nymphs coming off that. Actually, you're going to be able to pick up a fair number of trout doing this. Now, I'm talking about the wild trout in the mountain streams. I'm not talking about the hatchery trout because they're acclimated to feeding on these Eplis pluralis, and you can do pretty well, like I say, especially toward the latter part of February. But I get cabin fever, and I can't just stay away all month. Let's jump down to the bass. The cold water on the bass is putting them down into the deep pools. Now, the line is very important to me for my bass fishing at this time of the year. If the water level is at its normal rate and the normal depth and all that kind of stuff, I use a Scientific Angler Sink Tip 3. Now these sink in a 7-weight outfit, which I'm using, the first 12 feet sinks, and it sinks at about 2.5 to 3.5 inches per second, which is good if you're fishing the actual flow rate. Now, if you hit some periods where the water is really clipping down through there, then I go to that Scientific Angler sonar, the one they call the cutback tip. When I adjust that line for a 7-weight rod, now I'm getting 7 inches per second, and that is deep enough to fish the deepest water we have anywhere in the river. Now, it sounds a little crazy to talk about swing nymphing, but if any of you have taken my schools, when I'm talking about sweeping a streamer or swing nymphing, that's the way I fish that. I set myself right up beside the deepest pool I can get, cast up and across at about a 45-degree angle, let that thing sink down. Now, I'm talking about this 7 inches per second sink tip leader, and let it get down to the bottom and swing right along. These number 4 heavy marauders we've got will swing down right along that bottom, and you're going to let that thing crawl right along back down the stream, just as if it was a real nymph or a real streamer. And you can really pick some fish up. Not nearly what you got in September, but you're going to be able to pick up some. So take advantage of these winter conditions we have. It's certainly better than watching a replay of the football games. And it's a lot of fun. Pick a warm day. And I'll try to wear gloves. I've had the worst trouble here lately, and my fingers darn near freezing. But try to wear the gloves when you're doing this. But it's doable. So get out and give it a go. Thank you a whole lot. Call me if you have any questions at the Fly Shop at Edinburgh at 540-984-4212. Thank you very much.